Focus only on yourself and forget about everyone else. Have you ever found yourself in a state where you are not genuinely experiencing life, but instead constantly observing yourself as if through a multitude of other people's eyes? This feeling can sometimes be incredibly subtle, like a faint whisper in the back of your mind. You might find yourself meticulously choosing your words, deliberating over every sentence before you utter it. Perhaps you adjust your emotions, carefully curating them to appear appropriate for any given situation or company. You weigh every single choice, large or small, against an unseen metric of whether it will gain acceptance or disapproval from the world around you. On the surface, you continue with your daily routines, performing all your usual tasks and interactions. Yet deep down, there's an undeniable part of you that always holds back, perpetually waiting for some form of reaction, a nod of approval, or a sign of acceptance from the external world, before you dare to fully commit or move forward in your own life. Carl Jung, the renowned psychiatrist, posited that there exists a profoundly significant moment in our psychological development. This is when an individual begins to experience a deep sense of weariness, not from external failures or setbacks, but from the relentless, exhausting act of constantly orienting oneself outward. It's a weariness that stems from continually measuring one's worth, actions, and even existence against the standards and expectations of the world. This pivotal moment, Jung believed, is not a signal that you are losing your way or drifting aimlessly. On the contrary, it is a crucial indication, a profound internal calling, that it is time to redirect your attention and return your focus inward, back to your authentic self. This video does not advocate for an ignorant dismissal of the world, nor does it suggest isolating yourself from other people or human connection. Instead, it offers a gentle yet profound guide through a very personal and deep journey. It is a transition from a life governed by the external gaze and the need for validation towards a path where your primary focus shifts, allowing you to truly center only on yourself. If you find that the title of this video resonates deeply, stirring something profoundly familiar within your own experience, it is highly probable that this resonance is not merely accidental. Perhaps this signifies that you are, in fact, ready for a profoundly different way of living, a way of being where you no longer require the world's constant validation or approval to unequivocally know that you are treading the right path for yourself. We encourage you to stay and absorb the insights presented until the very end, because it is highly possible, even probable, that what you have been so tirelessly searching for, externally, in the outside world, has been patiently waiting precisely for you, deep within your own being all along. Living by the external gaze, the origin of alienation. There is a very common and relatable phase in human life that many experience, yet few truly grasp the subtle and insidious dangers it can harbor. This is the period when your sense of self-worth and inner value begins to feel inextricably linked to the perception of others. Your entire day can be uplifted and brightened by a simple compliment, a fleeting word of praise. Conversely, an unexpected silence from someone can instantly make you restless, uneasy, and filled with self-doubt. A single unfriendly glance, a perceived judgment, is often enough to make you question your entire life's direction and your deepest convictions. Outwardly, your life appears to proceed without interruption. You continue to work, to engage in conversations, to fulfill your various social roles and responsibilities. But internally, something incredibly subtle yet deeply significant is quietly eroding away. Your inner compass, your inherent sense of self, no longer resides firmly within you. It seems to have been outsourced. Carl Jung articulated that the precise moment an individual begins to measure their intrinsic self-worth and personal value by the external gaze of others is also the very moment they sever themselves from the deepest, most fundamental anchor of their psychological life. This isn't because the opinions of others are inherently wrong or malicious. Rather, it is because in doing so, you have effectively relinquished your innate authority to define who you are, handing it over to something entirely outside of your control, something inherently unstable and variable. At this critical juncture, your inner life ceases to be guided by your authentic self. Instead, it becomes predominantly controlled by a constant stream of collective signals, fleeting looks, subtle reactions, shifting social standards, and prevailing trends. The profound internal question you once asked, "Is this truly right for me? Does this align with my being?" is silently replaced by a more anxious, externally oriented query. Will this action, this choice, this aspect of me be accepted by others? Jung did not condemn the desire for recognition as a moral failing or a character flaw. He was not one to judge individuals for this inherent human inclination. On the contrary, he perceived it as a very natural and understandable sign of an unfinished, still developing psychological stage. When an individual's self has not yet been firmly established, when they lack a stable, unshakable inner axis to orient themselves, they are often compelled to use the external world as a temporary mirror. They look outward to reflect an image of who they are, seeking clues about their own identity. This reliance is not born of weakness, but rather from the absence of a sufficiently strong, self-validating inner core. As Jung sagely noted, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This speaks to the powerful unseen forces that guide us when we lack self-awareness. Consider the vivid image of a person navigating a dense forest without a compass, devoid of any internal sense of direction. This individual is instinctively forced to observe where the majority of the crowd is heading. If everyone else makes a turn to the left, he will follow suit. If the collective stops, he too halts his movement. He does this not because he intrinsically knows it is the correct path for him, but simply because he has no other available means of discerning his own true direction. Jung referred to this pervasive state as living by the collective map. In this condition, you don't genuinely know your ultimate destination or purpose. Your primary motivation is merely the fear of being left behind, of straying from the perceived safety of the group. And it is precisely within this outwardly conforming, yet inwardly directionless state, that the profound experience of alienation truly begins to take root. Alienation, within the framework of Jungian psychology, is not about engaging in overtly bad behavior or living an immoral life. It is far more insidious. Alienation describes a gradual, often imperceptible process where you live increasingly distant from your authentic true self, all the while believing that you are being entirely appropriate, perfectly fine, and successfully meeting all the required standards. You might choose a particular field of study not because it ignites your passion, but because it is widely regarded as a successful career path. You might adopt a certain lifestyle, cultivate specific interests, or strive for particular possessions, not out of genuine desire, but because they are admired or confer status. Each individual choice, when viewed in isolation, might appear perfectly rational and reasonable. However, as these choices accumulate over time, a profound sense of emptiness and exhaustion begins to set in, an unsettling feeling that you are living a life that, in its essence, does not fully belong to you. This isn't necessarily a dramatic, explosive crisis, but rather the very first quiet whisper of your neglected, authentic self seeking recognition. I recall an encounter with a man in his 30s who worked tirelessly, relentlessly. He was consistently praised by his peers and superiors as diligent, dedicated, and highly successful. Yet, whenever he found himself with free time, moments when no one required his attention or offered him acknowledgement, he would invariably feel an intense emptiness and gnawing anxiety. His ceaseless activity was driven not purely by passion or intrinsic motivation, but by a deep-seated fear of that unsettling feeling returning. Concurrently, he was perpetually comparing himself to others his age, constantly feeling slower, less accomplished, perpetually not enough. He failed to grasp that each act of comparison was a subtle yet profound denial of his own unique developmental process, a process that, as Jung consistently emphasized, is inherently individual and never identical to anyone else's. Jung firmly believed that every person possesses a deeply individual rhythm for their psychological development. When you succumb to living solely by the external gaze, you are essentially forcing yourself to conform to someone else's rhythm, a tempo that is not naturally your own. And when that imposed rhythm fundamentally clashes with your innate, natural process, an intense inner conflict inevitably emerges. The resulting fatigue, a pervasive sense of disorientation, and the profound feeling of not truly living your own life are the direct, inevitable consequences of this internal struggle. From Jung's discerning perspective, focusing only on yourself is far from a call to selfishness, isolation, or egoistic self-absorption. Instead, it is a profound invitation to reconnect with and return to that neglected inner anchor, the core of your being that has been overlooked for too long. It means consciously ceasing to rely on the external gaze as the primary means to define who you are. It is the courageous act of beginning to ask yourself what genuinely holds meaning for you, what resonates with your deepest truth, even if no one else acknowledges it, praises it, or even understands it. When you embark upon the journey of asking these fundamental questions, you are actively preparing to step away from the collective map that has guided you by default and to courageously seek out and trust your very own internal compass. And that powerful moment when you suddenly awaken to the realization that you have, for far too long, been living predominantly through the eyes of others, is not a collapse, not a failure, but rather a profoundly gentle, yet insistent, call from deep within your soul. It is an intrinsic reminder that the time has come to pause, to return inward, and to attentively listen to what truly yearns to live and express itself through you. Persona, the cost of wanting to be accepted. There comes a very subtle yet deeply significant moment when a quiet awareness begins to dawn. You realize you've been living far too long, perhaps even your entire life, primarily through the lens of other people's expectations and perceptions. In that very moment of profound insight, an unsettling yet liberating question inevitably arises within. So who exactly has been living my life, inhabiting my place all these years? According to the profound insights of Carl Jung, the answer to this question is often not another person entirely, but rather a remarkably familiar psychological construct that we rarely confront directly: the persona. The persona is essentially the social mask, or a series of masks, that we consciously or unconsciously learn to wear from a very early age. We cultivate these masks to navigate the complexities of the human world, to adapt to social norms, to secure acceptance, and crucially, to avoid the discomfort or pain of being excluded from various groups or communities. It's vital to understand that the persona was not inherently created with the intent to harm us. In its initial healthy function, it was an adaptive tool designed to help us survive, to function effectively, and to integrate into the human collective. The true problem, the psychological misalignment, begins when we gradually forget that this persona is merely a role, a temporary guise, and instead start to deeply believe that it constitutes our true, authentic self. Jung vehemently emphasized that the persona was never intended to be the source of meaning, purpose, or intrinsic value in one's life. It is, and always was, a tool, a vehicle for social interaction, but never the essence of who we are. When an individual begins the profound search for life's deepest meaning, for an authentic sense of existence, and for genuine inner security through the filter of that external mask, a very deep and fundamental misalignment occurs. You cease to live from an authentic internal wellspring. Instead, your life becomes primarily structured around maintaining and perfecting an external image, and a profound paradox emerges. The more tightly you cling to that carefully constructed image, the further you inevitably drift from your true internal self. The pervasive fear of being judged, of not measuring up, is the powerful force that gradually transforms the persona from a functional tool into an increasingly restrictive psychological prison. Initially, the intention is simple. You merely want to avoid trouble, circumvent conflict, and escape the discomfort of external criticism. You carefully adjust your words to be tactful and palatable. You suppress genuine emotions to appear appropriate and composed, and you opt for a safe, predictable way of living, all in a subconscious effort to avoid disappointing anyone. However, as time wears on, you begin to experience a chilling sensation. You feel as though you are no longer allowed to deviate from that prescribed role. Every truly divergent thought, Every impulse that contradicts the persona generates intense anxiety. At this point, the persona no longer serves to protect you from the world. Rather, it ironically begins to protect the world from the raw, authentic expression of your true self. Jung issued a clear warning about this very danger when he wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." When you become completely identified with your persona, your life fundamentally shifts its purpose. You begin to live for the sake of an image, rather than for the profound unfolding of your inner truth. From this deep identification, a very subtle yet potent form of addiction gradually emerges, the addiction to recognition. You find yourself needing external praise to feel a sense of inherent worth, requiring positive feedback to truly believe that your actions are right or good. This isn't necessarily because you are selfish or inherently shallow. It's because you have unconsciously misplaced your fundamental sense of value, investing it entirely within the mask, the persona, rather than anchoring it firmly within your core self. Consider the example of a friend who works in a demanding creative environment. She is consistently described by her colleagues and superiors as pleasant, exceptionally professional, and a perfectly harmonious fit for the team. She possesses an uncanny ability to know precisely what to say in meetings, what content to post on social media to maintain her image, and what persona to present to ensure that no one ever feels uncomfortable or challenged. Yet, in a very private and vulnerable conversation, she confided that she no longer genuinely knows what truly brings her joy or what she authentically desires. Every time an urge arises to do something different, something outside her established role, she is immediately assailed by a torrent of anxious questions in her mind. Will others find this strange? Will they be disappointed in me? Will they judge my choices? Her life isn't necessarily bad by external measures, but she has existed for so long within the confines of her persona that she has tragically lost the vital feeling of living authentically, of being truly present in her own skin. Her anxiety doesn't stem from any actual failure, but from the profound, terrifying realization that she has no safe space left where she can simply take the mask off and just be. In this profound context, focusing only on yourself does not imply a radical rebellion against society or a wholesale abandonment of all social roles. Jung did not advocate for blind destruction or impulsive rejection. Instead, focusing on yourself here means beginning the crucial process of distinguishing, with clear awareness, what aspects of your behavior and identity belong to the persona and what truly emanates from your authentic self. It means cultivating the courage to acknowledge that certain facets of how you live exist solely for the sake of being accepted, rather than arising from a deep internal truth. And when you begin to gently loosen the grip of the persona, even in the smallest ways, a natural anxiety will inevitably surface. This anxiety arises because you are stepping out of a zone of safety and familiarity that has perhaps defined you for a very long time. However, Jung believed that this discomfort, this initial anxiety, is not a sign that you are heading in the wrong direction. On the contrary, it is a powerful indicator that you are finally touching upon an authentic truth, a deeper layer of your being. Each time you deviate from performing perfectly, each moment you fail to meticulously maintain the old, carefully crafted image, you will undoubtedly experience unease. But alongside that discomfort, another profound feeling gradually begins to take shape. A sense of lightness, a feeling of being more real, more genuinely alive. You don't need to strip away the persona all at once, in a dramatic gesture. What Jung truly suggested was not the annihilation of all social roles, but rather the crucial act of preventing the mask from governing and controlling your deepest inner life. When you begin to consciously focus on yourself, you cultivate the vital skill of listening to your own inner response, your authentic feelings, before immediately considering the reactions and expectations of others. You learn to graciously allow yourself not to be recognized or validated in small, everyday moments, precisely in order to preserve your inner honesty and integrity. And from that gradual, conscious withdrawal of attention from the demanding outer world, a quiet yet profoundly transformative rebalancing begins to unfold within. If, while absorbing these reflections, you suddenly realize that you have lived a life that is outwardly very correct, perfectly aligned with expectations, but not authentically lived, this realization is likely no mere coincidence. Feel free to leave a comment, sharing a fragment of your story, a glimpse of this internal shift. It doesn't need to be perfectly articulated or fully explained. Just a sliver of truth you may have carried in silence for a long time. Sometimes simply daring to commit it to words is the very first courageous step, where the persona begins its gentle process of being set aside. Comparison as a form of denying your individual path. As you bravely begin to loosen the grip of your persona and consciously choose to no longer live solely for the purpose of external acceptance, an old, deeply ingrained reflex often immediately resurfaces. You instinctively look sideways. Your gaze drifts to others around you, observing whether they appear to be moving faster or slower than you, what achievements they have accumulated, and where they seem to be positioned on their respective life paths. Very often, you fall into the insidious trap of comparison without even fully realizing its subtle mechanism. According to the profound psychological framework of Carl Jung, this very moment of comparison is when an individual subtly yet significantly denies their own unique individual path, effectively opting to enter a race that was never in truth meant for them to run. Jung firmly asserted that no two psychological development processes are ever precisely the same. Each person is born with and gradually develops a distinct unconscious structure and an inherent individual rhythm of maturation. Society, however, does not typically operate by this profound logic of individual uniqueness. Instead, it constructs and imposes shared timelines, universal milestones that dictate perceived success. By a certain age, you are expected to have achieved success. By another age, you should have attained stability. By yet another, you are presumed to have arrived at a fixed destination. When you meticulously measure your own life by these externally prescribed societal milestones, you cease to listen to the delicate internal rhythms of your own process. Instead, you begin to relentlessly force yourself to adhere to a collective schedule, a timeline that is not authentically yours. Jung did not categorize this external striving as genuine motivation, but rather as a profound form of misdirection. From a Jungian perspective, comparison is far more than mere jealousy or insecurity. It represents a much deeper, more fundamental psychological act. It is, in essence, a denial of your own profound individuation process. Individuation, in Jung's lexicon, is the unique, often challenging path that each individual must courageously walk to become their complete, authentic self, not a perfected, more successful version of someone else. But every single time you observe others and conclude, "I am slower than them. I am falling behind. I am simply not enough," you are, often unconsciously, declaring your own inherently valid path to be inadequate or flawed, simply because it does not precisely mirror someone else's journey. This is a very subtle, yet profoundly damaging form of self-betrayal. Envision a person running in a chaotic, crowded race. Initially, his sole intention was to reach his own personal destination, guided by an internal compass. But as he becomes increasingly aware of the pounding footsteps around him, the surging crowd, he instinctively begins to accelerate his pace, altering his direction, perhaps even straying significantly from his original intended route, purely out of an overwhelming fear of being left behind. Inevitably, he collapses from sheer exhaustion, not at his true destination, but in a place that holds no genuine meaning or purpose for him. Comparison functions in precisely the same manner. When you are caught up in this external race, you expend an immense amount of precious energy on accelerating your speed, striving to keep up, while what you truly need most, what is fundamentally vital for your well-being and purpose, is a clear, unwavering sense of direction. In a Jungian therapy session, a man once candidly shared that for many years he felt perpetually behind his friends. They had achieved status, accumulated wealth, and established stable families, while he found himself constantly changing direction, shifting jobs, and reevaluating his goals. Each reunion with his peers left him with a crushing sense of failure, as if he had irrevocably missed something essential in life. However, during a period of profound personal crisis, when he was forced to abruptly stop all external striving, he gradually came to a liberating realization. He had never truly been lost. He had simply been walking a fundamentally different path. A path that was perhaps slower in conventional social terms, but infinitely deeper and richer in inner psychological terms. When he finally ceased comparing himself to others and began focusing intently on what genuinely mattered to him, the pervasive heaviness he carried gradually lifted. This liberation occurred not because he caught up to his friends, but because he courageously returned to his own authentic, individual rhythm. Jung once penned the powerful words, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." However, you cannot authentically become yourself if you are perpetually measuring your existence against the lives and achievements of other people. Comparison forcibly places you onto a timeline that is inherently not your own. It causes you to misjudge and devalue necessary and often transformative phases of your own unique life, such as periods of slowing down, the experience of feeling lost, or even what might appear outwardly as failure. These very phases for Jung were often profoundly essential catalysts for deep inner growth and personal transformation. In the ancient Greek mythology, Achilles is revered as the greatest warrior. Yet he remains invincible only when he faithfully follows his own destiny, his unique path. When he strays from this, seeking to prove himself through others' definitions of glory and fame, he steps outside the protective embrace of fate and ultimately falls at his only vulnerable point. Through a Jungian lens, this myth perfectly illustrates the profound cost of an individual abandoning their authentic path to chase a collective, externally defined image of success. And the psychological price of such a betrayal is always, without exception, exceedingly high. Focusing only on yourself at this critical stage does not imply turning your back on the world in cynical rejection or retreating into complete isolation. It simply signifies a conscious cessation of using other people's lives as the definitive yardstick for your own personal process. It means cultivating a profound understanding that not having arrived by superficial societal standards does not equate to failure. Instead, it may very well indicate that you are being prepared, in a deeper, more subtle way, for a different, richer kind of maturity. Forgetting others, in the true Jungian sense, means consciously releasing yourself from their prescribed timelines and external achievements. It means no longer asking the emotionally draining question, "Where do I stand in comparison to them?" And instead, returning to the infinitely more crucial and liberating question, "Am I truly aligned with myself, with my deepest truth?" When you begin to anchor your attention firmly on that profound question, the frantic external race gradually dissolves. Not because you win or lose it, but because you come to the profound realization that you were never, in the first place, meant to run in it at all. And it is precisely when you courageously step out of the incessant trap of comparison that your truly individual path becomes vividly visible, remarkably clear, and vibrantly alive, just as it has always been, waiting patiently for you to recognize it. Withdrawing projection, who is really judging you? After you have begun to move beyond the insidious trap of comparison and have started to bravely question the authority of collective standards, a very particular and often surprising moment can occur. This is when you realize that you are no longer actively chasing anyone's approval or seeking to measure up to external metrics. Yet, despite this progress, the pervasive fear of being judged, that nagging feeling of scrutiny, has not completely disappeared. You are no longer openly competing or comparing achievements with others, but a fleeting look, an ambiguous comment, or even a pregnant silence from someone can still trigger a profound sense of being scrutinized, analyzed, or found wanting. According to Carl Jung, this persistence of the fear of judgment is not a contradiction or a sign of regression. Rather, it is a crucial indicator that you are now standing at a deeper, more profound layer of your journey back to yourself. This is the intricate layer where projection, an unconscious psychological mechanism, has not yet been fully withdrawn. Jung held the belief that the vast majority of our obsessions and anxieties about being judged by others, do not in fact originate in the external world. Instead, they stem from unacknowledged, repressed, or unintegrated aspects of our own inner life. He termed this psychological process projection, the act of unconsciously attributing our own inner material, our own feelings, flaws, or shadow aspects to others. When a particular feeling, a difficult self-image, or an uncomfortable truth about ourselves is too challenging, too painful, or too threatening for our conscious ego to accept, our psyche, in its wisdom, often unconsciously assigns it to someone else. We then genuinely believe that they are thinking critical thoughts about us, that they are judging us harshly, when in reality, it is often the echoes of our own inner shadow, our denied and repressed aspects, speaking back to us. Jung famously wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The persistent fear of being judged operates through this very same powerful mechanism. You may genuinely believe that others are being unduly harsh or critical toward you, but if you pause and look more closely, more introspectively, who is the real, unrelenting voice within that does not allow you to make mistakes? Who is constantly whispering in your ear that you are not good enough, not fast enough, not correct enough, or not worthy? Very often this critical voice is not an external person at all, but rather a powerful, unacknowledged part of you, what Jung termed the shadow, the repressed and denied aspects of your own psyche. When this shadow remains unacknowledged, unintegrated, and unexamined, it doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it continues to subtly yet powerfully influence how you interpret and experience the entire world around you. Let me share the story of a woman who was perpetually consumed by the worry that her colleagues did not genuinely respect her. She felt that every question directed at her carried an undertone of doubt, and every piece of feedback she received was, in her perception, a veiled criticism. However, when she embarked on a deep, introspective journey of self-work, she gradually uncovered a deeply held, unconscious belief within herself. I am not good enough. This core belief had never once been consciously articulated or spoken aloud, yet it was always powerfully present, subtly influencing her interactions. And precisely because she found it too difficult to accept this belief as something within her that required healing and compassion, she unconsciously projected it outward, genuinely believing that her colleagues were harboring these very thoughts about her. As she courageously began to confront and integrate her own profound self-doubt, something truly remarkable occurred. The outside world, to her perception, suddenly seemed far less judgmental. This transformation happened not because her colleagues magically changed their opinions, but because the unconscious projection was finally withdrawn. From the lens of modern science, this phenomenon is far from unfamiliar. Numerous studies in cognitive psychology have unequivocally demonstrated that the human brain frequently interprets ambiguous information, such as a neutral glance or an unclear tone of voice, according to existing beliefs and deeply ingrained mental schemas. If you carry within you a schema or a core belief of, I am easily judged, you will naturally become hypersensitive to subtle looks, inflections in tone, or any unclear signals from others. Your brain will then automatically fill in those ambiguous gaps with negative, self-critical interpretations, reinforcing your existing belief. Jung meticulously described this profound phenomenon long before. Contemporary psychological research provided empirical evidence. The world that you often fear, he suggested, frequently serves as a powerful mirror, reflecting precisely what you have not yet dared to face or integrate within yourself. When you begin the courageous process of integrating the shadow, allowing yourself to truly see, acknowledge, and engage in a dialogue with those parts of yourself that were once denied or hidden, a crucial and transformative shift occurs. The external voices of judgment and criticism gradually lose their power over you. This isn't because you become numb or indifferent to the world, but because you no longer need others to unconsciously carry your own unresolved inner conflicts and insecurities for you. You become capable of hearing criticism without collapsing into despair, and you can face disagreement without feeling profoundly threatened, precisely because you have taken full responsibility for the landscape of your own inner world. Focusing only on yourself at this advanced level is no longer about withdrawing from society or naively ignoring what others might think. Instead, it is the powerful, deliberate act of reclaiming the vast psychological energy that you have unconsciously and consistently projected outward into the world. Each time you worry intensely about being judged, a significant portion of your precious psychic energy is projected outward, away from your core. When you consciously turn inward and ask, which part of me is truly saying this? Whose voice is this within? You effectively bring that scattered energy back inside, consolidating your inner strength. Jung viewed this as a profound transition from living reactively, constantly responding to the world's dictates, to living proactively, engaging in a deep, authentic dialogue with oneself. Forgetting others, in this refined context, does not mean denying their existence or ignoring their humanity. Rather, it means consciously ceasing to use them as mirrors for your own unresolved inner conflicts and insecurities. When you no longer require the external world to carry what you have not yet accepted within yourself, the world magically becomes more neutral, less threatening, and far more accommodating. And in that profound silence, a new, liberating kind of freedom naturally emerges. When projection is truly withdrawn, you cease asking the anxious question, "Who is judging me?" And instead you begin to ask a far more empowering question, "What within me truly wants to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated?" And the moment you courageously dare to stay with that question, to truly explore its depths, you take a very deep and significant step on the path back to your authentic self. If, in the quiet aftermath of these reflections, you realize that you no longer feel the compulsive need to ask, "Who is looking at me?" but instead begin to genuinely ask, "What within me is being reflected?" Please share a single word in the comments. Mirror. Sometimes, simply daring to recognize the mirror is enough for the profound inner journey to begin shifting its trajectory. Solitude, a necessary condition to encounter the self. In that profound moment when you finally stop believing that every eye around you is intently focused on your every move, life, in a wonderfully strange and unexpected way, suddenly slows down. The incessant noises and clamor that once crowded your mind, the endless external chatter, gradually begin to recede, quieting their insistent demands. And in that settling silence, a familiar yet long-avoided state gently surfaces, a feeling that many mistakenly equate with loneliness, the profound experience of solitude. According to Carl Jung, embracing this state is by no means a step backward or a sign of failure. On the contrary, it is a powerful indication that you are moving ever closer, with deliberate intention, toward your true inner center. Jung held a perspective on solitude that was starkly different from the common human fear of it. For him, solitude was not synonymous with abandonment, a painful sense of lack, or a lamentable social failure. Instead, Jung regarded solitude as a sacred, inviolable space where the soul can, at long last, speak its deepest truths without being drowned out by the cacophony of external voices and demands. He once eloquently wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." When you have spent too much of your life existing under the constant, scrutinizing gaze of others, you rarely, if ever, truly hear what is genuinely important to yourself. Therefore, a conscious withdrawal from the crowd is not an act of cowardly escape, but rather a necessary and vital precondition for your inner truth to emerge, to make itself known. When you are perpetually reacting to the myriad opinions, expectations, and ever-shifting emotions of others, your authentic self is deprived of the essential space and stillness required to coordinate and guide your own life. You might function with remarkable efficiency in the external world, seamlessly integrating into various social structures, but deep inside, a quiet, untouched space remains, a sanctuary of your true self that has never been fully explored or honored. And it is precisely out of an unconscious fear of this untouched, quiet inner space that many people cling so tightly to perpetual busyness and constant social interaction, using it as a deliberate, albeit unconscious, means to avoid confronting their own inner depths. Imagine solitude as a tranquil lake in the serene stillness of early morning. When a strong wind whips across its surface, The water is constantly rippling, reflecting distorted, unclear and fragmented images. Only when the wind eventually calms and the surface becomes perfectly still and glass-like does the true, undistorted image beneath, the depths of the lake, begin to clearly appear. Our psychological life operates in much the same way. When you are perpetually surrounded by the insistent voices and demands of others, you only perceive fleeting, superficial reflections of yourself. But when you summon the courage to truly be alone, to consciously cease reacting to external stimuli, the deeper, more profound layers of your authentic self begin to gently, yet powerfully, emerge. Silence in itself does not create your true voice. It merely provides the sacred space and stillness that allows that voice to finally be heard, to resonate with clarity. A compelling historical example of this profound journey is found in the life of Steve Jobs during the period when he was famously forced out of Apple in the 1980s, the very company he co-founded. Outwardly, this phase appeared to be a significant personal and professional failure. However, inwardly, it was a period of profound withdrawal and deep introspection. He deliberately slowed down, traveled to India, immersed himself in meditation practices, and rigorously reflected on what truly mattered to him, beyond the fleeting allure of fame and external recognition. It was during this intensely solitary period that many of his core revolutionary ideas about design, simplicity, and intuition truly took shape and crystallized. When Jobs eventually returned to Apple years later, he was no longer merely chasing trends or engaging in noisy external competition. Instead, he was operating from a far clearer, more grounded inner center. From a Jungian perspective, this is a classic illustration of how solitude can become the transformative crucible, the essential space where the self is profoundly restructured and realigned. What often frightens many people about solitude is not the mere state of being alone, but rather what inevitably surfaces, what demands attention, when there is no one left to provide external distraction. In the profound silence of true solitude, avoided questions finally begin to appear. Long-suppressed true desires, unnamed sadnesses, and unresolved inner conflicts, once conveniently covered up or pushed aside by the relentless demands of social life, begin to insistently demand your conscious attention. Jung considered this confrontation absolutely necessary, because it is only when you dare to fully stay with these uncomfortable internal contents that you gain the invaluable opportunity to integrate them, rather than continuing the draining pattern of projecting them outward onto others. Focusing only on yourself in this context does not mean severing all relationships or denying the reality of the world. Instead, it entails a temporary intentional withdrawal of your attention from others in order to re-establish a vital inner order and balance. You don't need to vanish from society entirely, but you do need to cultivate periods of silence and stillness deep enough that you are no longer compulsively pulled by the anxieties of comparison or the fear of judgment. When you are alone, without desperately trying to fill every moment with external stimuli or activity, you are actively granting your true self the invaluable opportunity to re-coordinate and re-harmonize your life. Forgetting others here is not an antisocial act. On the contrary, it is the sole pathway back to your authentic center. When you no longer depend on others to validate you or to serve as a constant backdrop for your identity, you begin to stand far more firmly and authentically in your interactions. You cease to cling anxiously, to overreact emotionally, or to lose yourself entirely within relationships. True solitude, paradoxically, does not distance you from people. It empowers you to be more fully, genuinely present when you return to them. When you can exist in silence without panic, when you can be alone without experiencing a sense of lack or incompleteness, that is a clear and powerful sign that your authentic self has begun to rightfully take its place at the helm of your life. And from that unwavering inner foundation, you return to the world not to seek, but to truly live. Not to be seen, but to be profoundly present. Not to chase anyone's approval, but to walk in graceful alignment with the deepest, most authentic rhythm of your very own being. From extroverted ego to a disciplined inner life. According to the profound teachings of Carl Jung, this particular stage marks a pivotal and transformative turning point, It is the moment when an individual consciously ceases to be perpetually pulled outward by the demands, expectations, and distractions of the world. For the very first time, they begin the deliberate and courageous process of cultivating a disciplined inner life. This is not the conventional discipline driven by external force, the relentless pursuit of achievement, or the compulsive need to prove one's worth to others. Rather, it is a unique and potent discipline born from a very deep, intrinsic inner need, what Jung insightfully termed inner necessity. Jung never advocated for blind, impulsive action or frantic, ceaseless activity simply for the sake of feeling valuable or productive. He drew a crucial distinction between actions that are primarily driven by the extroverted ego and those that are profoundly rooted in the authentic inner core. When the extroverted ego takes the lead, individuals tend to act primarily to be seen, to gain recognition, and to be favorably compared to others. In such a state, the very rhythm and direction of one's life become dictated by the ebb and flow of external feedback and validation. However, when action genuinely arises from an inner necessity, you engage in activity because something deep inside demands to be realized, to be expressed, to manifest. This intrinsic drive persists even if no one else ever sees your efforts, no one offers praise, and no one truly understands your motivation. Jung wisely wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." This speaks to the fundamental truth that genuine discipline cannot be derived from a universal, one-size-fits-all formula or a set of external rules. True discipline, in its most authentic form, only appears and takes root when you diligently listen to and honor your own unique individual rhythm. Imagine a disciplined inner life as a magnificent tree with its roots growing deep, unseen underground. These roots are not visible to the casual observer, nor are they outwardly impressive or showy. Yet, their depth and strength are the sole determinants of whether that tree can withstand the fiercest storms. If you focus exclusively on nurturing the leaves and meticulously shaping the canopy to appear beautiful, impressive, the tree might look perfectly healthy and robust, until the first real storm inevitably arrives. Jungian discipline, therefore, is not about making the visible canopy of your life more impressive or externally appealing. It is about the profound daily practice of returning, in quiet solitude, to nourish those invisible life-sustaining roots deep within. I recall a man named Leon who worked in the demanding world of finance. He was accustomed to a relentlessly fast pace, and his goals were inextricably linked to external recognition and material success. After a period of intense burnout, he made a conscious decision to slow down. Strangely, he didn't embark on a complete cessation of work, nor did he launch into a dramatic, highly publicized self-improvement plan. Instead, he simply began with quiet consistency to wake a little earlier each morning. During this time, he would read a few pages from a meaningful book, write a few lines of personal reflection in a journal, and then focus on the single most important task of his day, all without telling anyone. No one praised him for these new habits. No one even knew what he was doing. Yet, Leon noticed a profound internal shift. He became calmer, clearer in his decisions, and far less swept up by external pressures. He didn't necessarily become better than others in a competitive sense, but he became far more aligned with himself. And from that newly established inner anchor, external effectiveness and success naturally followed, not as an ultimate goal, but as a genuine consequence of his internal congruence. From the perspective of modern science, this Jungian insight also finds a clear and robust basis. Numerous studies on self-regulation unequivocally demonstrate that intrinsic motivation that arises from within, is far more sustainable and potent than extrinsic motivation, which is driven by external rewards. When action is propelled by external incentives, surveillance or evaluation, the brain quickly becomes fatigued and requires increasingly higher levels of stimulation to maintain engagement. By stark contrast, when action is deeply tied to personal meaning, authentic purpose and inner coherence, the nervous system maintains a much more stable and sustained state of focused attention and energy. Jung articulated this profound phenomenon early on through the language of depth psychology, observing that psychic energy flows long-term and with genuine vitality only when it serves the inherent process of becoming one's true self. Focusing only on yourself at this advanced stage is no longer about turning away from the world in rejection, but rather about deliberately establishing a new, more authentic order of priorities. You invest deeply in yourself, not with the aim of surpassing others, but with the profound intention of avoiding the ultimate betrayal of what you know deep down to be true for you. You might indeed do less than others, or move at a slower pace than the collective. However, each step you take, each action you undertake, carries a profound, authentic weight. This form of discipline is often a lonely path, precisely because it does not produce a compelling, applause-worthy story to tell. There are no immediate grand achievements, no cheering crowds, no external validation. And precisely because of this quiet, internal nature, it remains undisturbed by the fleeting clamor of the external world. True growth, from Jung's perspective, is almost always silent, unfolding inwardly. It doesn't resemble a sudden, dramatic breakthrough, but rather a quiet, consistent accumulation of small, intentional acts. Each day you consciously choose to do what is necessary, not because you are pushed by external forces, but because of an inner knowing. Each time you keep your word to yourself, even in the smallest, most private matters, you steadily strengthen your inner center, your core. And when that inner center becomes solid, unwavering, and deeply rooted, you can then act in the world without being dragged, swayed, or dictated by its external currents. When your inner life is truly disciplined, you no longer require excessive external control or validation. You don't have to force yourself to try harder, because the necessary energy, the intrinsic motivation, is already abundantly present within. You no longer feel the compulsive need to prove yourself, because your direction is inherently clear, guided by your inner compass. And it is precisely at this profound juncture that you realize a quintessential Jungian paradox. The more deeply you focus on and nurture yourself, the more steadily, authentically, and powerfully present you become in life. Quiet, unshowy, yet with immense weight and profound impact. This is the unseen discipline that supports your entire authentic life. If these words resonate with you in a calm, non-explosive way, yet deeply enough to make you pause and look more intently at your own unique rhythm of living, consider pressing like on this video. Not as an external response, but as a small internal sign that you are choosing to listen to something profoundly real and true within yourself. Sometimes even such a silent internal gesture is a powerful form of inner discipline. Withdrawing energy from the world, stop seeking validation. So, what unfolds after you have meticulously built a disciplined inner life? After you've made significant strides, yet you still feel a subtle, lingering sense that you are waiting for the world to respond, to acknowledge you. You are no longer living in chaos, no longer compulsively chasing comparison, and no longer reacting blindly to external stimuli. But somewhere, deep inside, a very subtle movement persists. The quiet wish to be acknowledged, to be seen, to receive confirmation that you are indeed on the right path. According to Carl Jung, this persistent, subtle seeking of external validation is not a failure of your inward journey. Instead, it represents the next crucial stage of ego maturation, the profound moment when your psychological energy truly begins its deep withdrawal from the world. When the ego is in its immature phase, it fundamentally requires external reflection to even know and affirm its own existence. Praise, attention, and positive feedback from the outside world serve as essential mirrors through which the nascent ego takes shape and develops its initial sense of self. However, Jung firmly believed that the ego is not destined to remain indefinitely in this state of external dependence. As the ego matures and strengthens, it gradually sheds its reliance on the world to constantly tell it that it is okay or good enough. It begins instead to anchor itself on a fundamentally different foundation, inner unity or coherence. At this advanced point of development, your sense of inherent value no longer derives from how much you possess, how many people recognize you, or where you stand in the societal hierarchy. Rather, it emanates from a deep, unshakable inner sense that what you live, what you think, and what you do are all in harmonious alignment, free from internal conflict. Many individuals mistakenly conflate the concept of focusing on yourself with egoism, excessive pride, or a cold antisocial withdrawal. However, from a profound Jungian perspective, withdrawing your psychic energy from the world is not an act of turning away from others in rejection. Instead, it is the crucial act of ceasing to use them as your primary source of self-worth and validation. When you still experience a persistent need for validation, it indicates that a significant portion of your precious psychic energy is still flowing outward, constantly waiting to be returned to you in the form of praise, attention, or affirmation. As a direct consequence, your emotional life, even if you outwardly appear independent, remains subtly yet powerfully externally regulated. I once heard the story of Anna, a woman who had successfully moved beyond the need for comparison and was no longer overly afraid of judgment. She had cultivated a relatively solid inner life, worked steadily and authentically, and did not pursue any superficial external image. Yet, whenever she shared a personal project or a creative endeavor, she still unconsciously found herself checking for feedback, scanning for reactions. Not because she was inherently weak, but because a lingering part of her was still silently asking, "Is this good enough to be seen, to be accepted?" When she acutely noticed that very subtle, ingrained movement within herself and consciously chose to stop it, not by forcing herself to be indifferent, but by gently returning to the deep, intrinsic feeling of working for the sake of the work itself, a quiet yet profound shift began to occur. She no longer felt her emotions rise or fall precipitously with the reactions of others. The quality of her work remained the same, but her emotional state became noticeably lighter, more stable. She didn't lose motivation, she simply lost her dependence on external approval. Jung wrote with powerful insight, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." To fully, genuinely accept yourself means reaching a point where you no longer need anyone else to bear witness to your inherent value or confirm your worth. This prospect is indeed terrifying for an immature ego, which has grown accustomed to being perpetually nourished by external feedback and affirmation. But for an ego that has navigated sufficient experience and undergone genuine maturation, this realization becomes an ultimate liberation. You no longer feel the compulsive need to prove yourself, because there is no longer any part inside demanding constant reassurance or external validation. Imagine your psychic energy as a flowing stream of water. When you are constantly seeking validation, that stream flows outward, dispersing and spreading thin everywhere, continuously seeking external sources to replenish itself. When you consciously withdraw that energy, it doesn't simply disappear. Instead, it seeps deeply into the ground, nourishing your roots, strengthening your core. No one sees this water underground, yet it is what profoundly determines whether the tree can survive a prolonged drought. Inner value functions in precisely the same way. It does not need to be displayed or paraded for others, but when it is deep and robust enough, all outward action becomes stable, grounded, and authentically impactful. Emotional independence, within Jungian psychology, does not imply a cold, detached state of needing no one. Rather, it signifies being fundamentally unshaken by whether others respond to you or not, by whether they approve or disapprove. When the self begins to coordinate your life from within, your emotions no longer rise and fall capriciously with the external gaze. You become capable of receiving praise without excessive excitement or inflated ego, and you can face criticism without collapsing or feeling threatened. This is not because you have become numb or emotionally detached, but because the very center of your emotional regulation has profoundly shifted from external influences to your stable inner core. Focusing only on yourself at this culminating stage is no longer an effort, a conscious struggle, or a forced discipline. It becomes a natural, effortless state of being. You no longer need to actively try to forget others, because when your psychic energy has been fully withdrawn inward, others naturally lose their overbearing influence and power over you. You are no longer consumed with proving that you are right, nor do you require anyone to confirm that you are on the right path. You simply know, not intellectually, but through a deep, intuitive sense of inner coherence and unwavering self-trust. This represents a very particular and profound moment of psychological maturity. It is when you realize with liberating clarity that you are no longer living your life to be seen by others, not to be recognized or validated, but simply not to betray what you know in your deepest being to be true for you. The world continues to exist, people are still very much present, but they no longer hold the ultimate authority or power over your inner life and well-being. And in that very quiet yet powerful withdrawal of external reliance, a rare and exquisite form of freedom emerges. It is a freedom that does not require you to oppose anyone, to fight against anything, or to surpass anyone else, precisely because you are no longer standing on the same axis of external measurement. When you arrive at this profound point in your journey, you may finally realize that focus only on yourself was never an act of rebellion, nor a cold, egoistic withdrawal. Instead, it is a very quiet, profound return, a silent, fundamental shift of the center of your living, from the demanding outside world to the authentic, unwavering core within. No longer needing the world to constantly confirm who you are, no longer requiring the gazes of others as proof of your inherent value, you begin to stand firmly on an entirely different foundation, that of inner coherence. From this foundational point, life does not necessarily become easier in terms of external challenges, but it undeniably becomes profoundly truer, more authentic. You no longer feel compelled to live fast to keep up with anyone else, to live correctly to be accepted, or to live big to be seen. You only need to live in exquisite alignment with what is moving most deeply and authentically within you. And paradoxically, it is precisely when you cease seeking your place and validation in the external world that the world itself no longer possesses the power to shake you from your grounded, inner center. If this video has prompted you to pause, even for a brief moment, or if it has touched a very familiar feeling you've never quite managed to name, consider sharing it with someone else who may also be weary of living under the constant, scrutinizing gaze of others. And if you wish to continue this profound journey into your inner life, subscribe to the channel to keep walking with us, not to become a better version for the world, but to no longer lose yourself within its endless demands and expectations.